Before I go on, I want to give a shout out to Lulu and her pet cat of 23 years, Katie, who just had to be put down mercifully. Rest in peace, Katie. Number 1. The Gift. I don't really understand it. Some people are really strange and obsessive when they have a crush on someone. I can't really imagine what it must be like for someone to place their entire well-being upon the being of someone else. I wasn't sure at first if I should tell the story, because it happened when I was underage. This was in high school, actually. When you get into high school, in the area that I grew up in, you meet a whole bunch of new kids. There were 2 different junior high schools that joined together into one high school. At first, I was excited to meet a bunch of new people, but that changed after I met Kyle. Kyle was very cute. He was the broody type who didn't talk much. He dressed like a skater, always wearing hoodies no matter what the weather was like. He never participated in class either, but he wasn't an ass or anything. He just sat in the back of the class and always appeared to not be paying attention. I have to admit to liking Kyle at first, and asked my friends if I should ask him out. They all seemed to like the idea, so after a while I approached him. I have to admit again to be very intimidated by this. I mean, he was quite the odd guy. And when I walked up to him, he didn't even look up at me until I addressed him. And when I asked him if he'd like to hang out sometime, his entire demeanor changed. He lit up like a Christmas tree and seemed excited. It was nice to get the positive response that I had been hoping for, but it was still really, really odd. I gave him my cell phone number and asked him to give me a call. I had 2 more classes after that. Once they were over, I met up with my friends to hang out for a bit. I decided to check my messages on my phone, and I was shocked when I had 10 voicemail messages and several text messages from Kyle. All this happened in less than 2 hours since I gave him my cell number. I listened to all the messages, and at first, they seemed fine. But as they progressed, Kyle seemed to be getting more and more upset that I was not answering the phone. It was bizarre because he had to know that I was in class. I realized that I probably made a mistake in asking him out. I let my best friends listen to the messages and it freaked them out as well. They suggested that I refuse any date with Kyle and ask him not to call my phone anymore. I wasn't sure what to do, since I still really liked Kyle. I mean, I guess that it makes sense that he's just a little insecure, doesn't it? I decided that when I got home, I would give him a call back. I did that, and he seemed a little upset with me at first. But his demeanor changed again, and he acted like he was happy to talk to me. He kept trying to plan things that we would do together, and at one point, he even called me his girlfriend. I was shocked and a little scared of his behavior. I played along while we were on the phone, and in retrospect, I know this was the wrong thing to do. I only gave him more food for his insecurity, or whatever it was that made him behave this way. After about 3 hours, I was finally able to get off the phone when my mom had finished making dinner. I went through the rest of the night wondering about the mistake I made. I was surprised that Kyle was like this. I mean, I didn't know him, but he didn't seem crazy, just lonely. If you ever watched Buffy, he seemed a lot like Angel. He was cool and aloof, but he really didn't seem that way. I took the coward's way out. I told him in a text message that I didn't think dating would work. I then downloaded a blocking app and blocked his number. Strangely enough, Kyle didn't behave any differently when I next saw him in school. Well, he did look different. He waved and smiled at me. He didn't come up to talk to me and didn't seem to be mad at me for some reason. I guess that maybe he just realized that he was coming on too strong and decided to back off and be friendly. I was relieved. Valentine's Day came about 3 weeks after this. I didn't have a Valentine myself. I had gotten over the thing with Kyle. But during class, he wouldn't stop looking at me. I was so uneasy in our class together. I was terrified when class was over, expecting him to come up to me. But he didn't. Sitting in the next class, I felt weird at one point. When I looked up towards the door, I saw Kyle looking at me through the door. I wasn't sure why he was there, as he should have been in class, but he disappeared when I saw him. It was hard getting through school. After school, I walked home with my friends. After we split, I began walking home on my own. It felt like I was being watched. I felt uneasy as I walked the cold street towards home. I nearly jumped out of my skin, though, when I felt someone touch me on the back. I jumped again when I saw that it was Kyle. "I'm sorry if I scared you," Kyle told me. "I just have a card for you." He reached out and gave me an envelope. I noticed that his hand was bandaged up. I asked what was wrong, and he just told me he cut himself on some glass. He told me he would see me later, and ran off. I didn't open the card until I got home. When I did, I nearly fainted dead away. It was a homemade card, which read, "I give you my blood. I will give you my heart." And there was dry blood all over the inside of the card. I went to my parents, of course. There was a lot of business with the police, my parents, and the school board, and I don't want to get too much into it, but I will let you know that Kyle remained in the school, but he was taken out of the class that I was in. I saw him every school day for the next 4 years. He never was mean to me, though. He remained a brooder, but he always smiled and waved at me with the hand he cut to get blood for my card. Number 2. Valentine Breakup. I can tell you with no hesitation that the worst day in the world to break up with someone is on Valentine's Day. My name is Blake, and I dated a girl we'll call Mandy for several years, although we never really had problems in our relationship. After a long time, I just didn't feel like I was in love with her anymore. I always knew that I should break up with her, but never could bring myself to do it. As I mentioned, we never had problems, and I really did care about her. I just didn't love her anymore. It was on Valentine's Day that everything came to a head, really. She made some amazing plans, and I didn't want to break them. I figured we would have a nice night, a sympathy bone. She's the one who used the term, not me. And then I would let her know I loved her, but wasn't in love with her anymore. The night was wonderful. I can't explain how uneasy it was for me, though. We started by going out to a great restaurant and had a wonderful meal. There was a play we both wanted to see, so we enjoyed that. Afterwards, we went to the Cheesecake Factory, ordered cheesecake to go, and took it back to her apartment. We watched a movie while we ate the cheesecake together. Although I was having a really nice night with her, I at no point felt like I would want to continue the relationship. I felt friendly and caring, but the spark just wasn't there. After the movie and the cheesecake and a lot of cuddling, we retired to her bedroom to end Valentine's Day the way it should be ended. Afterwards, as I was getting up out of bed, I knew I had to breach the subject. I wasn't looking forward to it, of course, but it had to be done. I was sitting on the bed, facing away from her. That was when I told her the words that no one wants to hear from their boyfriend. We need to talk. What happened next happened so fast that I couldn't even believe it. Something hit me hard in the head, and it almost knocked me out. Instead, I fell off of the bed and managed to turn and look back at the bed. I saw Mandy on the bed, holding a freaking ball-peen hammer in her hand. My head was ringing, and I rubbed the back of my head, feeling the blood that was flowing freely. "I knew it!" she screamed at me psychotically. "I knew you were going to do this, and on Valentine's Day. You planned on breaking up, and you still went out with me?" As I lay on the floor, I tried to rationalize what was going on, but I really couldn't. I tried to tell her something, anything, but no words came out of my mouth. I was still trying to process the fact that my now ex-girlfriend had just hit me in the back of the head with a ball-peen hammer. She kept screaming at me, and I just didn't have time to even try and process what the crazy woman was raving about. I knew I had to get out of the apartment before she did something to me again. Struggling to my feet, Mandy made to lunge at me again. Luckily, I was able to avoid her and get to my feet. I ran to the bedroom door, slammed it, ran to the front door, and out of the apartment. I ran to the stairs and out to my car, not looking back to see if she was following me. But she wasn't. I got in my car and, stupidly, drove to a hospital. I didn't press charges against Mandy. Maybe I should have. I don't know. I broke up with her on Valentine's Day, which I can admit now is pretty cold. I guess I felt bad for her. I haven't seen her since. Number 3. Valentine Surprise. People need to be honest. When they're not, some really bad things can happen. This story happened a while back. Oh, and I am gay, so let's get that out of the way. If you don't want to hear a gay story, don't listen. I had a friend in Philadelphia who asked me if I wanted to come and house sit for him while he was on vacation. I was willing to do this. He flew me out a couple of days early, though, so we could spend some time together. The very first night that I got there just happened to be Valentine's Day. After I arrived, my friend Joe picked me up and then went and picked up his friend Phil as well. I didn't know in advance that this was going to happen, but I ended up not minding too much when I saw Phil. Damn, if he wasn't the cutest thing I'd seen in a while. I immediately began wondering if he might be interested in me. We went to a martini bar, which I figured Joe decided on because I have a taste for chocolate martinis. The martinis were expensive, but they were well worth it. Very, very yummy. The cocktail boy was a bit of a pain in the ass, but that just lowered his tip, and that was his own fault. Anyway, this all had a lot to do with us. I really liked Phil, and thought it might be fun to flirt around with him. Well, I was downing the martinis pretty quickly, and so was he. Our inhibitions were quickly fading. It was after a while that I noticed that he finally began flirting back with me. I was excited. Joe didn't seem upset with what was going on, and that made sense. We were only friends. He even tended to encourage me to date certain people, and I knew he had no interest in Phil. He seemed to encourage us to, more and more, as the night went on. Joe was going to take me back to his place at the end of the night. I was pretty much into Phil, and wanted him to come along. In fact, when we got to the car, he asked for me to sit in the back seat with him. I agreed. We cuddled in the back, and it was nice. At this point, Joe didn't seem like he was upset. Still, he even made jokes like, "You guys seem to be really comfortable back there." I don't remember how it happened, but Phil ended up coming back to Joe's house with us. I did not invite him, but I was happy that he was there. We stayed up late, had more drinks, and Joe ended up being the first one to go to bed. Phil and I cuddled for a bit, and then everything just went black. When I woke up, I felt like shit. But it wasn't a hangover. Hell, I've had hangovers that would kill other people, so I know what a hangover feels like. This was a pain and an agony that I couldn't explain. And I was in the spare room, naked, and in bed with Phil, who was also asleep. He was naked too, but he was handcuffed to the bed. I was unsure of what had happened, and I really wasn't into kinky things. It was pretty obvious, through several clues, that certain things had happened. I tried getting up and my knees buckled. I couldn't explain it, but I was dizzy and out of shape. I was able to finally get up, and I made my way out of the bedroom. I found a note on the door from Joe, informing me that he went on his vacation early, and asking me to take care of the house for him. It was odd, as this was 3 days before he was supposed to leave. I was too messed up and kept falling over. I had an uneasy feeling, thinking that Joe may have drugged us and had his way with us. I finally had to call 911, and an ambulance came for us. We had to cut the cuffs off the bed to get Phil free, and we were both taken to the hospital. A blood test revealed both of us had a significant amount of Ambien in our systems. It was something that neither of us took, and we figured that Joe must have slipped it to us that night and did some unseemly things with us. I didn't press charges against Joe. It was too weird. Phil agreed to let me stay with him until I was better and could fly home. Joe never tried to contact me again. It has been years now, and I still have heard nothing from him. My thought is that he knows we know what he did, and he is counting his blessings that neither Phil nor I got the police involved. Hey all, a Killer Orange Cat here. I hope that everyone has had a really good Valentine's Day. Even if you don't have a Valentine, hug a pet or a stuffed animal and let someone know they are loved. As far as I go, I love you all and consider you my Valentine. Now, if you want to see print versions of these stories, visit the Killer Orange Cat subreddit, where they have already been posted. Also, you can visit my sister's Killer Orange Cat merchandise store, in addition to the Teespring merchandise that you see under the video, she has a Represent store too. The links to both of these are in the description. In the meantime, if you like this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. If you're not already subscribed to Killer Orange Cat, please consider hitting the subscribe button below, or use the icon of Ichigo that will appear at the end of the closing. Feel free to leave a comment to let me know what you think of the video and consider sharing it with someone you think might enjoy it. You can follow my Big Orange Tabby, Ichigo, and myself on Facebook and Twitter by using the links in the description. If you have a story you'd like narrated on Killer Orange Cat, email it to the address included in the description. My only requirement is that the story is original, meaning it has not yet been read on any other YouTube channel. In the meantime, don't forget to make sure to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where Killer Orange Cat might be hiding. Good night.